Some things in life don't unravel all at once. They peel away slowly, like wallpaper in an old house, layers of bitterness, resentment, and missed chances revealing themselves year after year. For me, the unraveling began when I was 7 and my dad married Linda. Linda had a son, Travis, 1 year older than me, and seemingly born with a permanent scowl any time I was in the room. I remember thinking, he'll warm up eventually. After all, we were just kids. Kids adapt, right? But Travis never did. In fact, from day one, he made it his mission to make me feel like a guest in my own home. Not a guest in the polite, "Can I offer you a soda?" sense, but like an intruder, an outsider, a mistake. I tried. God, I really tried. I shared my video games. I invited him to join my backyard soccer matches. I even let him pick the movie on Friday nights. But it didn't matter. Nothing cracked his wall of disdain. He'd roll his eyes, sneer at my attempts to bond, and loudly remind anyone who'd listen that I wasn't really his brother. Just my stepbrother, he'd say with that passive-aggressive smile. We're not actually related, you know. In school, it got worse. Travis had this natural charisma, the kind that makes teachers adore you and kids flock to your side. Me, I was quieter, more bookish, an easy target. He'd drop subtle lies that made me look like a liar, a thief, even a mooch. I'll never forget the day he told our classmates I was living off his family, because my dad couldn't afford rent without Linda. I was 7. I didn't even know what rent was. My dad tried. He wasn't blind to the way Travis treated me. He stepped in a few times, gave stern warnings, even grounded Travis once or twice. But Travis learned quickly he'd turn up the charm when adults were near and save the cruelty for when we were alone. And so his reign continued, quiet and unrelenting. I grew up under the same roof as him, but we were never brothers. Not really. Just 2 boys orbiting the same fractured household, pretending we were part of the same story. By the time I was a teenager, I stopped trying. There's only so many times you can extend a hand before it feels stupid to leave it hanging. And Travis? He wasn't interested in healing. He was too busy sharpening his resentment into something sharper, something colder. Looking back now, I realize those early years were only the prelude. The real storm, the one involving my house, a courtroom, and the absolute nerve of Travis, was still waiting over the horizon. But we'll get there. First, let me tell you how everything truly started falling apart. Time has a funny way of warping people. Some mellow out, others grow bitter. Travis, he doubled down. When we were 16, he had his first child, a girl. I remember the day he moved back into the house with Linda and my dad. His girlfriend had bailed, his job was gone, and he had nowhere else to go. For a moment, I thought maybe, just maybe, the weight of fatherhood would change him. It didn't. If anything, it calcified whatever was already toxic inside him. He wouldn't let me near the baby, not even to say hi. Don't touch her, he warned, like I was a threat. I wasn't angry. I was numb. Years of rejection will do that to you. You stop hoping for change. You stop reaching out. You just keep your distance and build your own world. And that's what I did. I moved out as soon as I could. Worked late hours, stacked whatever savings I could manage. And eventually, after years of grinding, I bought a house. It wasn't huge, but it was mine. A modest place in a quiet corner of town, far from the dysfunction I grew up with. I didn't keep in touch with Travis. No calls, no texts. Holidays were the only times we crossed paths, and even then, it was tense. You know the kind of silence that crackles. Even when no one's yelling, that was us. Every room we were in together felt colder, smaller, but I was at peace with the distance. I'd found stability. I had my own place, a steady job, and enough quiet to hear myself think. Until the phone call. My dad's voice was cautious, like he knew I wasn't going to love what came next. "Daniel," he said, "Travis is in a rough patch. He's lost his job again, and his apartment. He's staying here for now, but it's cramped. Real cramped." I could already feel where this was going. Then came the line that still makes me laugh in disbelief. He was wondering if maybe you could let him and the kids stay with you. Just for a while. I didn't answer at first. Not because I didn't have words, I had too many. But what I eventually said was simple. "I don't think that's a good idea." Dad sighed. I could hear the disappointment bubbling up, but I didn't let it land. Because here's the truth. I had spent my entire childhood watching Travis isolate me, erase me, sabotage me. Now, suddenly, I was supposed to open my door like none of it happened. No, that's not how healing works. That's not how family works. And yet, somehow that was just the beginning. Because Travis, he wasn't done, not even close. I thought no was the end of it. A clean, closed sentence. A boundary. A word that could finally keep Travis out of my life for good. I'd made it clear to my father, and by extension, to Travis, that my house was off limits. Not because I was cruel, not because I didn't care, but because history matters. Pain leaves stains. You don't just hand over your home to someone who spent half your life trying to make you feel like you didn't belong. But boundaries mean nothing to people who've spent their lives ignoring them. It was a Saturday morning. I was halfway through making coffee, still in sweatpants, and halfway listening to a podcast when someone knocked on the door. I didn't think much of it at first. I don't get visitors, but maybe it was a package. Maybe the neighbours needed something. But when I opened the door, there he was, Travis, standing on my porch with 4 kids and 2 large suitcases. No warning, no heads up, just there, like a flood that broke through the walls and spilled into the hallway. He didn't even flinch. "Hey," he said, like this was some casual catch-up. "We need to talk." I blinked. My hands still smelled faintly of coffee grounds. "What are you doing here?" The kids looked tired, confused. One of the smaller ones was holding a stuffed dinosaur by its neck. Travis exhaled, annoyed, like I was the inconvenience, and said, "Look, it's too cramped at Dad's. The kids are losing their minds, and honestly, he and Mom are getting frustrated. I figured we'd come here and work something out, like he just figured he could roll up with 4 children and change the terms of reality." "Work something out?" I repeated, stunned. "You've got more space here," he continued, casually looking past me into my living room like he was already sizing up which kid got the couch. "It's just temporary. I just need time to get on my feet." I felt my jaw tighten. I stepped out onto the porch and gently closed the door behind me. Not fully, but enough to make it clear he wasn't coming inside. "Travis," I said carefully. I already told Dad this wasn't going to happen. He sighed like I was being unreasonable. "Come on, man, we're family. Don't make this harder than it needs to be." I let out a quiet laugh, not because it was funny, but because the absurdity of it all was finally catching up to me. "Family?" I said. "You spent 20 years pretending I didn't exist. You made it your mission to push me out of every family photo, every birthday, every damn room I walked into. And now you want to act like this is a shared effort." He threw his hands up. "That was the past. Things are different now." "No," I said flatly. "Things are just desperate now." For a second, neither of us spoke. The wind blew a few dry leaves past our feet. His kids were fidgeting, murmuring. One of them asked if they were going inside yet. Travis didn't answer. He was too busy glaring at me like I'd just betrayed some sacred code. "You've got the space," he said, his voice lower now, edged with frustration. "You're not even married. No kids." What's the big deal? That hit a nerve. Not because it was true, but because it was weaponized, thrown at me, like a reason I didn't deserve my own stability. "What's the big deal?" I repeated. "The big deal is that this you showing up here, expecting me to solve your life, is exactly what you've always done. You take and assume and demand, and when someone says no, you play the victim." His face twisted into something ugly. "You think you're better than me." "No," I replied, calm but clear. "I just don't owe you anything. That did it." He stepped closer. "You'll regret this," he muttered. "Don't think I'll forget." His oldest, a boy maybe 10 or 11, tugged on his arm and whispered something. Travis barely acknowledged him. He just turned, grabbed the handle of the biggest suitcase, and stormed back toward his van. The kids followed silently, like shadows. No yelling, no tears. Just resignation. I didn't watch them drive away. I closed the door, locked it, and stood there with my forehead resting against the wood. The quiet returned, but it wasn't peaceful. It felt fragile. I called my dad later that day and told him what happened. He wasn't surprised. He didn't say anything to us, Dad said, voice weary. But I had a feeling he might try something. He didn't just try. He showed up, Dad, with kids. Like I'm the fallback plan he never bothered to respect. My father sighed, and I could tell he didn't have much fight left. "I wish things were different," he said. "So do I replied. And I meant it. But some things are beyond wishing. Some bridges, when burned long enough, turn to ash. And now I had a new fear. Travis wasn't done. He'd been denied, humiliated, and turned away. And if I knew anything about him, it was that being told no never stopped him. It just redirected the fire. I should have known it wouldn't end with a slammed door. Travis has never been good at accepting rejection, especially when it comes from someone he never expected to stand up to him. For as long as I've known him, he's had this ability to twist reality around himself, make it bend to whatever he needs in the moment. He lies in a way that almost feels like storytelling, part performance, part manipulation, all perfectly tailored for the audience in front of him. And now, his audience was our family. It started small. A cold text from my aunt, someone I hadn't spoken to in almost a year. "He's your brother. Don't you think the kids deserve better?" I stared at it for a long time before locking my phone and tossing it face down on the table. Then came the calls. One from my cousin on my stepdad's side, sounding unusually self-righteous. "We heard what happened," he said, as if he were delivering bad news. "You know, there's helping someone, and then there's just being cold." "You don't know the whole story," I told him. "I know he's your family," he shot back. "Isn't that enough?" Family. That word was getting thrown around like a weapon lately. Always conveniently ignoring the fact that Travis spent 2 decades making damn sure I didn't feel like family. That word meant something different to him. It meant obligation without reciprocity, loyalty without kindness, guilt without memory. The worst call came from my father. He didn't yell. He never does. But his voice was tighter than usual, like every word was a negotiation. "Travis says you humiliated him in front of the kids," he said quietly. I exhaled. He showed up with no warning, Dad. What was I supposed to do? Hand him the keys and pretend the last 20 years didn't happen? "I get that," he said, "but your stepmother and we're stuck in the middle here. The house is packed. We don't know what to do." I could feel it coming, the slow shift from frustration to guilt. "He's making it sound like you abandoned him," Dad added. "Like you just don't care." I rubbed my eyes. You think I don't care? I care enough not to let him use me again. I care enough not to enable him. I'm just not willing to light my life on fire to keep him warm. That ended the conversation. But not the storm. A few days passed. No calls, no knocks. Just an eerie calm, like the eye of a hurricane. Then one morning, I opened the mailbox and saw an official-looking envelope with my name printed across the front. Inside was the last thing I ever expected: legal paperwork. Travis had filed a claim, a formal, handwritten complaint, alleging that I was denying housing to his dependent children during a time of crisis. In short, he was trying to legally pressure me into letting him and his kids move into my house. I stood in my kitchen reading the document over and over, not because I didn't understand it, but because I couldn't believe it was real. This man, this stepbrother, who had never once acknowledged me as family, who'd worked overtime for years to shut me out, was now attempting to use the legal system to force his way into my life. I called my lawyer that same afternoon. I explained the situation. He listened quietly, then finally said, "This is nonsense, Daniel." Desperate. Yes, but legally it doesn't hold water. He's using your shared step-family connection as leverage, but unless your property is registered as a multi-family unit or falls under specific tenancy laws, you have no obligation here. Can he make trouble, though? I asked. Only the kind that wastes your time, he said. But we'll respond formally. It should have been reassuring, and in a way it was. But I still couldn't shake the image of Travis, sitting down with some legal aid rep and writing out his case against me, concocting a narrative where I was the villain and he, the martyr. And worse, I knew people were buying it. My dad had grown colder over the phone. Linda barely spoke to me at all. I got a voicemail from one of Travis's kids, just a soft voice asking, "Why don't you want us to stay with you?" He was using his kids. That was the hardest part. They were innocent. I had nothing against them. But Travis was dragging them into the fallout of decisions he made, casting me as the uncaring step-uncle in his twisted drama. And no matter how absurd the legal attempt was, I knew he was succeeding in his real goal, painting me as the one who broke the family. The truth? The family was cracked long before I ever said no. I just finally stopped pretending the pieces still fit. And if he thought a few legal papers and some guilt-soaked voicemails were going to change my mind, he still didn't understand who I'd become. You'd think it would feel good being right, having the law on your side, watching someone who's caused you nothing but grief finally face consequences for their actions. But it's not that simple. Not when it's family, or at least the ghost of what was supposed to be family. The day of the hearing was grey and quiet, the kind of weather that makes you second-guess yourself, even if your footing is solid. I sat in the waiting area with my attorney, tapping my fingers against the arm of the chair. I hadn't seen Travis since he'd stood on my doorstep with his suitcase full of expectations. I didn't miss him. When he finally walked in, he looked smug, like he already knew the ending of the story, and I was just there to play the role of cold-hearted homeowner. He had a cheap suit on too tight in the shoulders and a folder under his arm. No kids in sight. Just him and his lawyer, a tired-looking man who seemed deeply aware that this was a waste of everyone's time. The judge arrived right on time. Female, mid-50s, professional, unreadable. She opened the session with a brief explanation of the claim Travis had filed, then asked him to present his side. He stood and launched into a monologue so rehearsed I could practically see the cue cards. "Your Honour," he began, "I'm a father of 4. I've recently fallen on hard times, job loss, housing instability, and I've turned to family for help. My stepbrother, Daniel, has the means and space to help us. but he's refused. I'm simply asking for temporary accommodations until I can get back on my feet. I watch the judge nod calm, neutral, not impressed, not dismissive, just listening. He went on, painting me as cold, unfeeling and estranged by choice. Not once did he mention our childhood. Not once did he bring up how he used to humiliate me, exclude me, poison our shared spaces. No, in Travis's version of events, I was a privileged man turning his back on a struggling family out of spite. Then it was our turn. My lawyer stood, calm and crisp. Your Honour, my client is under no legal obligation to house this man. They are not blood relatives. There is no rental agreement, no guardianship responsibility, no history of cohabitation. This is a standalone property, privately owned, fully paid for by Mr. Miller. What Mr. Travis Bennett is attempting is not a plea for assistance, it's a coercive abuse of legal process. The judge leaned forward. Mr. Bennett, she said, turning back to Travis, do you have any documentation that indicates your stepbrother ever offered you housing, either formally or informally? No, Travis muttered, his confidence beginning to unravel. Do you have any record of tenancy, shared ownership, or property rights related to this home? Again, none. She glanced down at the papers in front of her, then looked up at me. Mr. Miller, have you ever lived with Mr. Bennett or his children in this residence? No, Your Honour. And do you have reason to believe his presence would be disruptive or unwanted? I didn't hesitate. Absolutely. She nodded, slow and deliberate, then turned back to Travis. Mr. Bennett, this court finds no legal basis for your claim. Your request is denied. This case is dismissed. And just like that, it was over. There was no gavel slam, no dramatic walkout, just a paper shuffle and an official decision that finally drew a boundary no one else had been willing to enforce. Travis looked stunned, as if he genuinely thought the law would bend to his version of reality. For the first time, I saw him speechless. He didn't make eye contact. He didn't storm out. He just gathered his things and walked away, shoulders lower than when he'd come in. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt free. Like someone had cut a rope I didn't realize had been tied around my chest for 20 years. Afterward, I called my father, told him what happened. He was quiet for a long time. I guess that's that, he finally said. I guess it is, I replied. I wish things hadn't gone this far. Me too. And I did. Despite everything, I never wanted a war. I never wanted it to end in court filings and subpoenas. I just wanted peace. And in Travis's absence, I finally had it. Weeks passed, then months. No more calls. No more guilt-tripping relatives. Travis faded from my life the same way he entered it, loud, angry, and ultimately powerless to change who I had become. I still live in that same house. It's quiet, just how I like it. Some days I pass by the front door and remember him standing there with his bags, with his demands, with his narrative, and other days I don't think about him at all. And that to me is the real win, not the judge's ruling or the legal victory. Just the space, the silence, the freedom to live my life without him in it. Story 2, I'm Alex, 30, and a few weeks ago, my life got completely flipped upside down. I'd been in a long-term relationship with someone I genuinely thought I'd grow old with. Her name was Cassie, 31. We were together for just over 4 years, lived together for 3, and we'd even started planning our future. The ring was hidden in my closet, and I was waiting for Christmas to propose. We met through mutual friends, bonded over hiking, trail running, and a shared love for good coffee and bad rom-coms. Our lives blended seamlessly. Cassie was smart, warm, and always down for a spontaneous weekend road trip. I never thought I'd question any of it. But around September, she started acting off, quiet, distant. The kind of distracted where you'd have to repeat yourself twice before she'd respond. I asked if something was wrong, but all I got back was, "I'm fine," classic. I chalked it up to work stress. Then, out of nowhere, her friend Harper, who worked with her, and who I'd known loosely through Cassie, messaged me. She asked to meet privately, said it was about Cassie. Weird, right? But my gut said to hear her out. We met at this little coffee shop after work. Harper looked nervous, which only made me more anxious. She asked if things were okay between Cassie and me. I said yes, mostly, aside from the weird vibe lately. Then she dropped the bomb. Cassie was apparently thinking of leaving me. According to Harper, Cassie told her she wasn't sure about getting married, that she needed space. No mention of anyone else, just doubts. I was floored. I mean, we were talking about venue ideas 2 months ago. Harper said she felt bad keeping it from me and didn't want me to be blindsided. I didn't know what to believe. After that, I went into overdrive trying to fix things, planning more date nights, going out of my way to make her feel loved. I even cleaned the apartment, like deep cleaned. And Harper was weirdly helpful during all this. She'd check in, ask how things were going, tell me what Cassie had been saying at work. I thought she was just being a supportive friend. Then in November, Cassie hit me with it. She said she wanted a break a month apart. "No cheating," she said. "Just time to think." She swore she still loved me, but didn't want to marry me just because it was comfortable. That one stung. I told her that after 4 years, if she still wasn't sure, maybe we were just done. The conversation turned into a full-blown argument, and by early December, she'd moved out. Our lease was ending anyway, so I stayed in the apartment, and she got a new place across town. Just like that, 4 years ended in a haze of confusion and heartbreak. December was a dark month. Coming home to silence was brutal. So when New Year's rolled around, I invited some friends over to fill the void. Harper came too. Everyone tried to lift my spirits. I was trying to move on, even if my heart was still bruised and bandaged. Harper stayed after the party to help clean. We talked, drank a little more, and one thing led to another. I know how that sounds. It wasn't premeditated. Just 2 lonely people crossing a blurry line. The days after were messy. I felt guilty, not because I'd cheated Cassie and I were officially over, but because it all happened so fast. Harper started hanging around more. She was attentive, sweet, always asking how I was doing. I didn't realize how often she was around until one Sunday morning, Cassie showed up at my door. She looked furious, like, "I've been rehearsing this speech in my car for 30 minutes, furious." She saw Harper inside and just lost it. Accused me of cheating, of moving on like our relationship had meant nothing. I told her she was the one who walked away. She didn't want to hear it. Then came her twist. She claimed Harper manipulated her into breaking up with me. Cassie said she'd told Harper about her doubts, and Harper kept planting seeds. "Are you sure he's the one? You should take time for yourself." She said that when she tried to talk to me about needing space and I pushed back, Harper called me controlling and suggested Cassie end it. Harper, standing right there in my apartment, denied everything, said she was just listening to her friend and relaying things to me because she thought I deserved to know. But Cassie wasn't buying it. Neither was I, entirely. It was too coincidental. Harper had never really been in my life much then. Suddenly she's texting me, hanging out, hooking up. Now I was stuck between 2 versions of the truth. Did Harper engineer our breakup to swoop in? Or was Cassie just bitter that I moved on? I couldn't think straight. I told them both I needed space and asked Harper to leave. The next few days were a mental roller coaster. I kept reading texts, trying to piece things together. Harper messaged a few times, saying she wanted to explain her side. Cassie wasn't replying to my messages at all. Eventually, I told Harper the first needed honesty, nothing in person, just the truth in writing. She said Cassie had been having doubts for months, especially after they talked about marriage. She said she only told me because she thought I had the right to know. Then came the kicker. According to Harper, Cassie came back not out of love, but because she got jealous when she found out I was moving on. I didn't know what to believe, but I needed to talk to Cassie, really talk. So I kept trying. A week later, Cassie finally agreed to meet. She came over on a quiet Saturday afternoon. I cleaned the place, made coffee, and tried not to look as nervous as I felt. She looked wrecked, tired eyes, no makeup, hair pulled back, like she hadn't been sleeping well. We sat across from each other. I offered to explain everything, but she asked me to just listen. She pulled out a notebook and read from it stuff she'd written down because she didn't trust herself to say it right. She admitted she'd been scared about getting married, not because of me, but because of her parents' toxic marriage. Her mum stayed with her dad out of dependency, and Cassie feared she'd repeat that pattern. She started seeing those same traits in our relationship, me taking care of everything, her relying too much on me, even financially. She said she talked to Harper for support, that Harper told her about a cousin who took a relationship break and came back stronger. It made sense at the time. But then, when she asked me for space and I pushed back, she panicked and ended it. She said it felt final, even though she didn't want it to be. Then she asked about Harper. I showed her our messages. I told her the full timeline. When we met, what was said. When things crossed the line, I told her the truth, even when it hurt, Cassie cried. She told me she'd moved into her new apartment, but couldn't sleep there alone, that she missed me the second she walked away, that she realized too late how much of our life was us, not just the routine, but she also said she couldn't pretend Harper didn't matter, that seeing her in our home broke something inside her. Still, she asked if we had a shot, if we could somehow rebuild. I told her I wanted that more than anything. She had 3 conditions. I block Harper everywhere, no contact, no exceptions. We go to couples counselling. We never talk about the New Year's thing again. And if I ever made her we were on a break joke, she'd punch me. That last one made us both laugh. First real smile we'd shared in months. We weren't healed, but we had a starting point. She didn't stay that night, but she left a toothbrush behind. And that felt like enough for now. The next few weeks were quiet, in the way a slow sunrise is quiet, gentle, hesitant but hopeful. Cassie started spending more time at the apartment. Not permanently, just a few days at a time. She brought over a few things, her favourite hoodie, the tea she liked, the ugly mug she refused to throw away. It felt familiar but fragile, like we were rebuilding something using the same bricks, just more carefully this time. I kept my word. Blocked Harper on everything. Phone, socials, even email. I didn't reply to her messages. Didn't open the long email she sent me a few days later. I deleted it without reading. I figured if there was anything left to say, I didn't need to hear it. Cassie never asked to see proof that I blocked Harper. She just trusted me. And that meant everything. Therapy started 2 weeks later. Cassie had already found someone online and was doing individual sessions. We agreed to try couples counselling together and managed to book an appointment with someone local who had decent reviews. Walking into that first session, I didn't know what to expect. I was nervous. Cassie was too. But something about being there, 2 of us in this small, quiet room, both willing to work, made me feel like we still had a shot. We talked about everything. Cassie opened up about her childhood, about how her mum stayed in a loveless marriage because she felt like she couldn't survive on her own. That fear had lived in the back of Cassie's mind for years. She said she started seeing those patterns in us not because I was doing anything wrong, but because she leaned too much on me and stopped recognizing her own independence. She told me she felt coddled, like I never let her struggle, even when she needed to. She wasn't wrong. I like taking care of people. It's just who I am. But I hadn't realized that by trying to make her life easier, I'd accidentally made her feel small. That hit hard. I apologized. Genuinely. Not the kind of sorry that's meant to smooth things over, but the kind that hurts a little to say, because you mean it. I told her I wanted to do better, not just for her, but for us. The therapist helped us see that we weren't broken, just unbalanced. And that wasn't the same as incompatible. Meanwhile, Harper kept trying. Even though I had her blocked, she found other ways. Burner accounts, mutual friends. She messaged Cassie directly, saying I'd misled her, and that Cassie was throwing away her dignity by taking me back. Cassie didn't engage. She forwarded one of the messages to me, then blocked Harper herself. About 2 weeks after that, Harper crossed a line. She started posting photos of me and her on Instagram. Old photos, but ones we'd taken when we were hanging out after the breakup. Some of them were harmless, us sitting on the couch, laughing. But others were more intimate, not explicit, but personal. Moments that didn't belong to the internet. Cassie saw them before I did. Her hands were shaking when she showed me. I felt sick. Harper had always seemed a little intense, but I didn't expect this. Cassie reported the posts. I reported them too. Eventually, Harper's account was flagged and removed. But the damage was done. Cassie didn't yell. She didn't cry. She just went quiet for a few days. Pulled away a little. And I didn't push her. I just gave her space, checked in, and waited. When we talked again, she said something that stuck with me. I know you didn't do this to hurt me, but I still feel hurt, and I need time to untangle that. That was fair, that was honest. And I respected the hell out of it. We kept going to therapy. Some sessions were good, others rough, but we showed up every time. We learned how to talk to each other again, not just to respond, but to hear. By late February, Cassie brought up moving back in together. She didn't want to move back into the old apartment, though. Said it was filled with too many mixed memories, good and bad. She wanted a fresh start. I got it. I agreed. Problem was, we now had 2 leases. Mine on the old place, hers on a small apartment she barely lived in. But we figured it out, paid the early termination fee on her lease, and started house hunting. Something just for us. Around that same time, she got transferred to a new department at work, one that didn't involve Harper. Apparently, Cassie had finally had enough. She filed a complaint through HR with the screenshots of Harper's messages and Instagram posts. The company handled it quickly. Harper got a formal warning and was reassigned. I didn't ask for details. Cassie didn't offer many, but I knew it gave her peace. In May, we found a small, single-family home just outside the city. Quiet street, backyard, a sunroom Cassie immediately claimed for yoga and plants. It wasn't flashy, but it felt right. The day we moved in, I watched her unpack a box, labelled kitchen stuff, and place our old coffee mugs next to the new ones. She looked up and smiled, like things were finally settling. We didn't talk about the proposal for a long time. Not because it wasn't on the table, but because we both knew we had work to do first. Cassie kept seeing her therapist. I started seeing one too, not just for us, but to understand myself better. My tendency to overfunction in relationships, to fix things without asking if they needed fixing. Together, we were healing. Slowly, quietly, without fireworks or drama. And then, on a random Saturday in late August, I asked her again. It wasn't some elaborate setup, Just the two of us on the back porch, coffee in hand, the sky soft and pink with sunset. I reached for her hand, told her I'd never stop choosing her, even when things got hard. Especially then. She said yes. Tears, laughter, all of it. And this time there was no doubt in her voice. We didn't rush the wedding, took our time, planned something small and private. Just family, close friends. No drama, no Harper. Last Saturday we said I do under a canopy of twinkling lights at my dad's country club. Cassie looked beautiful more than I can describe. She wore her mum's bracelet. I wore a navy suit she picked out. We danced, we cried, we laughed, and in that moment everything made sense again. You ever look back at something and wonder how it didn't break you? That's what the last year felt like. A slow, heavy wave that nearly swallowed me whole, but somehow I kept swimming. And now, sitting in our new home beside the woman I almost lost, it feels like the tide finally settled. Cassie and I spent our first morning as a married couple eating leftover wedding cake for breakfast. No fancy plans, no dramatic declarations. Just us, barefoot in the kitchen, her in my hoodie, me still riding the emotional high of everything we'd been through. The air felt still, like the house was finally breathing with us. We leave for our honeymoon next week. Somewhere quiet, just mountains, a cabin, maybe a lake if we're lucky. We didn't want a big trip. We just wanted space to rest, to be alone together with no past pressing down on us. But before we left, I needed to write this out, because even now, there are things I'm still learning about love, about forgiveness, and about myself. Cassie's been doing better. Her panic attacks eased up after she got into a solid therapy routine. She still has bad days, sure, but now she knows when they're coming. She calls them grey sky mornings. On those days, she doesn't pretend to be fine. She just asks me for space or a hug. Sometimes both. We've gotten good at that communicating. I mean, actually saying what's in our heads without fear of breaking something. It wasn't always that way. Used to be, we'd each retreat. Now we reach. One of the things she brought up in therapy and later in couples counselling was that feeling of being too taken care of. Like she didn't have her own life anymore. That was hard to hear at first. I thought I was being supportive. Turns out I was slowly becoming a crutch. We made a deal. Every week we'd check in about money, not in a controlling way, but as equals. I'd explain investments and budgets, and she'd try not to tune out like she used to. She even downloaded a finance app and set up her own savings goal. We still mess around about it. She calls it her grown woman fund. But the point is, she's doing it for her. And I'm learning to step back, even when it's hard not to fix things. Funny how the same instincts that make you a good partner can, in excess, make you a bad one. As for Harper, we never heard from her again after the last Instagram stunt. After Cassie's HR complaint, things got real quiet. We didn't talk about her anymore, and honestly, we didn't need to. Harper had been a symptom, not the sickness. Her presence only exposed the cracks that were already there. Still, there was one thing Cassie said that stuck with me. She didn't ruin us. We just let her in when we weren't strong enough to keep her out. That felt true. Painfully so. And for what it's worth, I don't hate Harper. Not anymore. I think she's got her own mess to work through, and maybe someday she'll look back on this chapter with regret. Or maybe not. That's not my story to carry anymore. I've let it go. There are days I still think about how close we came to losing everything. It creeps in when the house is quiet, when Cassie's asleep next to me, and I remember the nights when that side of the bed was cold. Sometimes healing doesn't come with closure, it comes with understanding. Knowing that love isn't always a straight line. It bends, it cracks, it hurts. But if you're lucky, it also forgives. And I was lucky. I still am. Not because things went back to how they were, but because we chose to build something better, slower, wiser, real. The wedding wasn't a reset button. It was a milestone, a marker that said, we made it through. And now we begin again, not from scratch, but from solid ground. People still ask me sometimes if I ever doubted getting back together, if I worried she'd leave again, or that I'd mess it up. Of course I did. But love without risk isn't love. It's comfort. And comfort doesn't grow you. We both had to bleed a little to learn that. The truth is, relationships don't end in a day. They fade, they fracture, and if you're not careful, they fall apart in silence. The miracle isn't that we got back together. It's that we were willing to speak into the silence, to choose each other, not because it was easy, but because it was worth it. So here we are now, married, still figuring things out, still laughing too hard at dumb TV shows, still making pancakes on Sundays and fighting over who used the last of the oat milk, still in love. There's a photo on our living room wall. Cassie framed it as a surprise. It's from our wedding day, us mid-laugh, her head tilted back, my arm around her waist. You can't see it in the picture, but I remember what she whispered just before the camera clicked. We made it. No more running. And she was right. No more running. Just two people, finally standing still together. Story 3, you ever have a moment when time slows down, not in a romantic, movie-like way, but in that stomach-dropping, blood-rushing, something's not right kind of way. That was me at 33, standing at the back of a wedding reception, staring across the venue at my girlfriend, Cara, whispering intensely with the groom, "Let me rewind." I met Cara at a local trivia night a few years back. I was flying solo, just killing time, and she happened to be placed on my team. What started as a random team up over beer and useless facts turned into a 4-year relationship. She was smart, ridiculously smart. And when she ditched her job as a history teacher to chase the dream of being a trivia influencer online, I backed her without hesitation. It felt like we were both chasing something bigger. Cara had this best friend from high school, Naomi. And Naomi had been with her boyfriend, Theo, since they were 15. I know, sounds like a Nicholas Sparks plot. They did the long-distance college thing, moved back to the same city, got engaged, and invited us to the wedding. I'd met both of them several times, sweet people, the kind of couple that made you believe in the forever kind of love. The wedding was a big one, a biker-themed bash at a vineyard just outside of town. Apparently, Naomi's extended family was all part of a local motorcycle club, Leather Jackets. Booming voices, and surprisingly tender hugs. The vibe was chaotic but warm, the kind of wedding where you feel like you've stepped into someone else's movie. Anyway, I'm mingling, sipping on champagne, and chatting with one of Theo's high school buddies when I glance around to spot Cara. That's when I see her standing off to the side with Theo. Not just chatting. No, this looked different. They were huddled near the wall, faces close. Voices low, expressions serious, way too serious for a wedding where the bride was beaming and dancing her heart out just yards away. I didn't say anything right away. I wanted to believe the best. Maybe it was nerves. Maybe Theo was having a last-minute freak-out, and Cara, who he'd known since their teenage years, was just calming him down. But the seed was planted. That night, back at the hotel, I asked her about it. What were you and Theo talking about earlier? I kept it casual, non-accusatory. Her answer? Oh, nothing serious. He was just feeling a little overwhelmed, and I talked him through it. I nodded, tried to believe her, but something in her tone didn't sit right. And when she kept checking her phone throughout the night, always with that same tight expression, I couldn't shake the feeling. I wish I could say I let it go, That I trusted her enough not to follow the itch, but I didn't. Around 2 a.m., when she was deep asleep beside me, I picked up her phone. I'd only done it twice before in our relationship, and both times I found nothing. This time I found everything. Their messages went back to that same day. The first one was from her, "Can I come by?" And then his reply, a suggestive emoji followed by, "Yes." My heart started to pound. I scrolled through messages from just a few hours before the time she'd told me she was with the bridal party getting their makeup done. That was a lie. They talked about sneaking away, about what happened between them. And then the messages turned graphic lines I'll never be able to unsee. Descriptions of what they did, where they did it, and how long they'd waited for that fantasy to become real. One line hit harder than the rest. "You liked it," she'd said, followed by a damn smiley face. He'd replied with something like, "That's not the point. You can like something and still know you shouldn't have done it." It wasn't just betrayal. It was calculated, cold. And it was on Naomi's wedding day. I don't remember much of the next hour, just pacing around the hotel room with my heart racing and my vision blurry from rage. I took screenshots of everything, not because I knew what I was going to do, but because I needed proof evidence that I wasn't losing my mind. Eventually, I just left, walked the streets for what felt like hours until the sun started to rise. And while my chest still felt like it was splitting in half, there was a strange clarity. I knew one thing for sure: I wasn't staying with someone who could do this. But there was still one more decision hanging over me. What about Naomi? Should I tell her? Should I blow up her brand new marriage, fresh out of the honeymoon glow? Or should I just walk away, end my relationship, and let her figure it out herself one day, maybe years from now? That was the part that haunted me. I could walk away quietly, no drama, no explosions. But could I live with knowing I left someone I cared about, someone who had just said "I do" in the dark, married to a man who cheated on her hours before their vows? That wasn't a question I could answer just yet, but I knew I couldn't stay quiet for long. When we got back from the trip, Cara probably thought everything was fine. She talked like we were going to get groceries, maybe catch up on some shows. Meanwhile, I was sitting on a nuclear secret. I waited until we got home, until she'd settled in and dropped her bags by the couch. Then I asked her to sit down. I didn't waste time. "I know you slept with Theo." It hit her like a slap. Her face lost all colour. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. Not at first. Then came the stammering, the wide eyes, the frantic denial that didn't even get a full sentence out. But she saw it in my face. I knew. "I don't care how you want to spin it," I said. "I saw the messages. I read it all. You're not getting out of this." She just sat there in silence, like her whole world cracked open. And maybe it had. I didn't care. Mine had shattered first. "I'm giving you 1 hour," I said, standing up. "Pack your things. Call someone to come get you. Whatever you leave behind is going to the curb or a donation bin. You're not coming back." At first, she didn't move. She just stared at me, tears finally rolling down her face, her lip trembling like she wanted to beg. I wasn't going to give her that chance. "Your time starts now." She got up 5 minutes later and disappeared into the bedroom. I sat in the living room watching the clock. I wasn't angry anymore. I was done. It was like a switch flipped. I didn't want explanations. I didn't even want revenge. I wanted distance. By the time the hour was up, she came out dragging 2 suitcases. One of her friends showed up a few minutes later to help. I didn't speak another word to her. I didn't need to. That was the last time I saw Cara in person. A few days later, she came back, banging on the door, asking to talk. I didn't open it. I just waited in silence until she gave up. But that was only one half of the story. The other half was Naomi. I debated it for days. Should I tell her? Should I be the guy who ruins her brand new marriage. I mean, it wasn't even a week old. But the more I sat with it, the more I realized I'm not the one who ruined it. That was Theo and Cara. All I'd be doing is telling the truth. So I called her. When she answered, I made sure she was alone. I told her what I was about to say would be heavy, that she might want to sit down. Then I told her everything. I didn't get into graphic detail, but I told her enough. The day of the wedding, the messages, the fact that Cara admitted to it in her own words, that it wasn't some flirty exchange or emotional slip. It was physical, intentional, and completely hidden. Naomi didn't speak for a long time, just breathed, and I let her sit with it. Finally, she said, "Thank you for telling me. That's what I would want. Always." She sounded hurt, hollow, but strong in a way I didn't expect. She said she'd take care of it. That was all. A week later, I knew she had. Cara called me again. I picked up this time. She was furious. "You didn't have to tell her. You ruined their marriage." I laughed. A real bitter laugh. "You did that all on your own." She tried to spin it, say I had no business interfering, that I was just bitter and wanted to blow up someone else's life because mine had fallen apart. "You cheated on me with a groom on his wedding day, and you're mad," I told the bride. "Are you listening to yourself?" Click, that was the last conversation we had, but I wasn't done yet. See, Cara had built a little online following, a trivia influencer, trying to carve out a space on TikTok and YouTube, and I knew exactly how to hit her where it would hurt. I didn't go nuclear myself. I hired someone to help, just a guy from a freelance site who specialized in social media damage control, or in this case, controlled damage. I gave him the screenshots. I explained the story. I told him to post subtle hints, plant questions in her comments, stir the pot. When she blocked him, he used another account, then another. People started asking questions. Videos popped up analyzing her sudden silence, speculating, digging. She turned off her comments eventually. Then she stopped posting altogether. Weeks went by, silence. That's when Naomi called me again. She was soft-spoken, but her tone had changed, like someone who had gone through fire and come out clear. She thanked me again, told me that after I made that call, she confronted Theo, and he confessed. All of it. She ended things the same day. And here's where it gets wild. Remember those biker relatives from the wedding? Yeah. Turns out they don't take kindly to cheating grooms. According to Naomi, they made a little visit to Theo. Didn't beat him senseless or anything, but let's just say he won't forget it. One of them accidentally knocked over his motorcycle. Another may have left a few holes in his fence. And then, somehow, don't ask me how they found Cara's address too. No violence. But they made it very clear they knew who she was, what she did, and that she wasn't welcome anywhere near their family again. The next week she moved out of state, just vanished, no goodbye, no posts, no closure. Honestly, that part made me smile. I didn't have to lift a finger. I just lit the match and karma carried the fire the rest of the way. You know that weird calm that hits after a storm, where things are still soaked and broken, but the silence feels different, heavier, maybe even peaceful. That's what the weeks after felt like. For the first time in years, I was waking up alone, and I was okay with that. No text to check, no suspicious glances at Cara's phone screen, no pretending that everything was fine. I had space. It felt unfamiliar at first, like walking around in a house you used to live in. But now, with all the furniture gone, quiet, bare, but clean, I started deleting the pictures. Not out of rage, not even sadness, just clarity. The kind that comes when you finally realize the person you were building a future with wasn't actually real. At least, not the version you thought you knew. The only things left were a few sweaters she hadn't packed. I boxed them up, didn't even open the lid again. I dropped them at the donation centre without a second thought. I was done. But here's the strange part: after all that mess, all that pain, I wasn't angry anymore. I mean, yeah, I got my revenge. I told Naomi. I nuked Kara's influencer image. I made sure the truth came out. And sure, maybe I helped a few biker uncles find the right addresses. But once that was done, the fire inside me went cold. It didn't need to burn forever. I'd done what I came to do. Naomi and I texted once or twice after the dust settled. Not anything emotional, just checking in. She told me she was okay. Hurt, obviously, but grateful. She said she was moving back in with her parents for a bit. Taking some time off work. She sounded tired, but not broken. Strong, in a quiet way. I respected that. She never asked for the screenshots. Never wanted to see them. I don't blame her. Some truths don't need to be relived. I saved them in a password-locked folder just in case. But I hope no one ever has to open it again. As for Theo, I haven't heard a word. From what Naomi told me, he tried to win her back. Called her every day for a while. Showed up at her parents' house once. Her uncle answered the door. That was the last time he tried. Good. Let him sit with the silence. Let him live in the house that used to be theirs, alone with his guilt and the memory of what he lost. That's better than anything I could have done. Kara, on the other hand, hasn't posted a thing online in months. Before all this, she was uploading trivia content 5 days a week, trying to build a brand. Now, nothing. It's like she disappeared from the internet. I keep getting her old content recommended to me by the algorithm. I always click not interested. Not out of spite, it just doesn't mean anything to me now. She's a ghost in pixels. Just another person I used to know. And the funny thing? I'm not bitter. I thought I'd be scarred for life. I thought I'd be paranoid, untrusting, cold. But the truth is, I came out of this lighter. Like I dropped a weight I didn't even know I was carrying. Cheating isn't just about the act. It's about betrayal of trust, of safety, of shared dreams. It guts you, yeah, but when you patch yourself back up, the parts that heal come back stronger. I've started reading more, hiking again. I'm even picking up solo trivia nights here and there, not because I'm trying to meet someone just because I like it. And yeah, I've started seeing someone new, slowly, carefully. We met at a bookstore because apparently I'm living in an indie movie now. She's kind, sharp, no big drama, no heavy history. We're just getting to know each other, one cup of coffee at a time. I told her about what happened. Not in full, but enough. She didn't flinch, just nodded and said, "That's brutal. But it sounds like you handled it with class." That hit me harder than I expected. Because for all the chaos that happened, for all the betrayal, the confrontation, the whispered wedding affair, I realized I never lost myself. I didn't stoop to cruelty. I didn't try to burn the world down. I just told the truth, did what needed to be done, and let the consequences land where they should. If you've ever been through something like this, been cheated on, lied to, betrayed in a way that rewrites your whole story, let me tell you something real. You don't need to destroy yourself to get even. You don't need to scream or chase or lose sleep plotting your next move. Sometimes the best revenge is just getting up, walking away, and watching them self-destruct without your help. Sometimes the best peace is the kind where they don't even get to be part of your future. I don't know where Kara is now. I don't care. I don't know if Theo still lives in that house alone. I don't care. What I do know is this: I'm free, and freedom after betrayal is the cleanest feeling in the world. So, yeah, I got my revenge, but more importantly, I got my life back, and I wouldn't trade that for anything.